But during that time, I was like taking a lot of it personally and being like, oh my God, I'm a failure. I'm letting go of these people. I'm having to make these decisions. I'm not getting the sales I once was. And I shifted my mindset to this is my responsibility, but it's not my fault. That is a big differentiator for all entrepreneurs out there. Like, you're responsible for the fact that your business is losing money and it's your money. You're responsible for a client going awry. Like, sure, your team is too, but ultimately you are, right? And if you're a good leader, you're not going to be blaming your team all day. But then at the end of the day, it's not your fault.
Welcome to The Rooted Founder. I am excited today. I'm actually in studio, which is so fun because I'm not normally. And I have a guest on today who I met through the Entrepreneurs Organization, as many of my guests have been. And her name's Rebecca. She has a branding company, and I'm super excited to dive into how she got started as an entrepreneur, the demons she had to slay to get to where she's at, and what's coming up in her life. So I'm super excited to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So I've got to know, I feel like every entrepreneur has like a moment, or they can look back on their lives and be like, oh, I had a lemonade stand and I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. What was it for you? Like, how did you know that you were going to someday build something?
I am very lucky to have had an entrepreneur as a dad and a mom that was very encouraging of anything I wanted to do and all of my creative pursuits. But yeah, I almost never had a regular job. I was a babysitter, and I wasn't just any babysitter. I like created flyers that I would promote. Like, I loved art and any kind of painting, art, anything to do with it. And so I would like put on the poster, I'm a babysitter, but I'll also teach your kids like art lessons, and I can cook these meals. Like, I had the 4 or 5 meals that I could cook at the time. And I was like, I can cook these things and I'm comfortable with doing sports with them or whatever else. And so I kind of was like marketing and branding myself from a very young age. And I just did so well with that. Like, maybe I should go back to that sometimes because I'm just like, I really killed it with that. Like, I had, 4 or 5 clients, I guess, or kids, families that I would work with, and they would stay out a little bit longer and give me like triple what they owed me because I stayed a little bit extra and things like that. Like, I feel like I really got a great response early on because I kind of knew to do that. And then I also was a figure skating coach, and I also I did a gardening company during the summers of college or university, we call it in Canada, I guess. And every summer I did this thing called Garden Girls, and I did a similar thing where we kind of like pitched ourselves and branded ourselves and had like a little poster with us in our gardening stuff. And I would just, so I very early on was like just inspired, and I'm sure it's a lot to do with my dad encouraging me, but it was like, you don't need to kind of work for someone. It was so helpful to do something like Garden Girls because I could build my own schedule in the summer and go to my friends' cottages or my cottage, like whenever I wanted to. I could pick when I wanted to work. And there's so many lessons I've learned from that. But I always knew I wanted to start my own business. And then out of university, I went to art school, and I actually got an animation degree. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be an animator. And I became a storyboard artist, worked in that for a little over a year, and then was like, nope, I need to set my own schedule and I need to take more risks, and it just wasn't the right fit. So I ended up building my branding agency pretty young. Like, I think I started around 21 or 22.
You're ridiculously creative.
Yes. Very creative person.
Garden Girls. I love the name. It is so fun.
Yeah.
And I got to go down the dad path because my dad was an entrepreneur and my grandfather was an entrepreneur.
Okay.
So what kind of entrepreneur was he, and what did you observe in him that you feel like got you excited about it?
I think everyone there's something about everyone seeing him as this like cool, impressive guy. He was one of the few of our family, extended family, to really like break through the 9 to 5 and like have a pool in their backyard or things like that. So maybe I saw some of the shiny stuff like that.
I know in my home,
Yeah.
like dinner table conversations were about business, supply and demand, economics. You know, like
Oh.
you learn things and pick up things maybe.
What's interesting is I feel like he really shut off work. I saw the flexibility, I guess, more so. Yeah, he didn't really, it was very hard for me to really even understand what he did. He's a forensic engineer, which is super niche, but he basically investigates. He has a company of different forensic engineering experts. They investigate fires, oil spills, accidents, and they figure out like the root or the origin of how it started. And sometimes there'll be an expert witness in court to, make sure that, like, it basically insurance companies, they'll sue, or insurance companies, people claim insurance all the time, and they just have to go and see, is it correct? Like, did they start this fire on purpose? Because people do. They start fires all the time on purpose to try to get insurance claim, and it's something that he can go and investigate and find out pretty easily. But yeah, I didn't even really know much about what he did until way later in life, like maybe even in high school, which is kind of interesting. But he always was just very encouraging. He, like, for example, with the Garden Girls,
So
when we
cute.
first,
I just love that
yeah,
name.
it's so cute.
Some little girl out there needs to start Garden Girls in their neighborhood.
They do.
You can franchise it.
Yeah, that's true. I should have done that. My brother, then we would have had to pay taxes though, and that was one of the beauties, is we didn't have to. I mean, we totally did, for the record, as little kids. We were not paid in cash. We paid taxes. But yeah, my brother actually copied it and did Garden Guys because it was so successful.
Yes,
So,
it's brilliant.
Him and his buddy did it. But yeah, I got to work with my friends and get them out of having to work at Hot Topic all summer long, and so it was, that was pretty inspiring. But my dad, he would just teach me little lessons all the time. I think that's more so what I absorbed. He was like, when we first were giving out those flyers, we printed out like 50 flyers, and I live in a neighborhood where it's beautiful, but it's like farmland basically. And so we would drive 10 minutes to the next house and give our flyer and put it in the door shyly, maybe talk to someone if we could. And we came home after a day of handing out these 50 flyers and, waited a couple weeks, heard nothing. And my dad was just like, hey, like, what's going on with your Garden Girls business? Like, are you guys getting any clients? And we're like, no, like, oh my God, we've given out so many flyers. And he was like, how many did you give out? Gave out 50. And he was like, oh, no, like, you have to give out like 300. And just like little nuggets like that, where it's like, you just don't, where would I ever even really know that? So then we were like, oh, okay, we'll give out 300. And then we had 7 solid clients from that over the summer that kept us super busy. And it was fun. So yeah.
So it's a numbers game. He taught you it's a numbers game.
Yeah. He's just like, oh no, like, you didn't fail, you just keep trying kind of thing. Or like just little things of encouragement like that. I wonder how else could he have really, because it's true, he didn't really talk about.
But he showed you. It sounds like he modeled it.
Yeah. That's more how he did it, I would say.
That.
He modeled it, and then I saw the flexibility in his life, but also, I mean, the stress and everything, although he did hide a lot of that too. Yeah, that's kind of what attracted to me, and I feel like he just gave me all these little nuggets of encouragement that is a different type of perspective than a lot of kids would get, which is like, be careful, try to please everyone. He's more of a rebellious nature, which I feel like has really impacted me. And it's really
meaning you got that trait too.
Yeah, I got that too. So like, when it comes to authority, most parents are like, listen to your teacher, like they know everything and you have to stay in line kind of thing. And my dad would be more like, well, teachers teach and other people do, and like not shitting on them, like not saying teachers are bad, like you still have to. But he was more like, hey, you just have to. My parents both of them said this. They're like, you just have to pass. Like, once you get into university or college, like that's kind of the only time where that report card even matters. Otherwise, and once you're in university and everything, you just have to kind of pass. and that rating system isn't really like real,
Yeah.
and it doesn't really reflect real life.
So in a way, he encouraged you to think for yourself.
Yes, and not really follow the structure of school as much. Like, do play the game, like, do it, but it's not like following it is going to get you ahead necessarily. So
parlaying that into your first business, and I don't know if your first business was the one that was successful or
it's pivoted.
Okay,
Well, I guess
so,
other than Garden Girls and
yes.
babysitting.
Okay,
but
so your very first business that you actually started is
and then
Pivot
actually
and Pilot.
incorporated and paid taxes on would be Pivot and Pilot. Yeah.
And I'm sure you brought all of your creative energy into that because that is a branding agency. And when you started that, you did it solo or with a partner?
With a partner, actually. Okay. Yeah.
And then what was that journey like? Because you had to go from nothing, it's just an idea, to something tangible, to then duplicating yourself, scaling, building a team. Who did you have to become, and how did you navigate that journey?
Yeah, I started with too much of like trying to control all these outcomes and being very worried about getting clients, I would say. I guess I had to become a salesperson, which I didn't expect. Like, that's something that all entrepreneurs kind of have to face.
Yes.
And I didn't realize how much that would take. So at first I was really interested in the creative side because I am a creative, and I grew up painting. I'm an animator, all of these things. But I actually, for this business, my business partner, he was more of the creative. And I did help and do branding, designs, and all the structure and selling. But at a certain point, pretty quickly on, I realized I know a lot more about this entrepreneur thing, and you are very exceptionally good at the output. And so I'm going to be taking on the sales side, and you're going to be creating the assets. And so I did have to kind of change from thinking of myself almost as a creative and more of like a entrepreneur or business.
That's kind of a hard shift.
Yeah.
Because a creative is more of a feeler. In my mind, I feel like creatives, we are more intuitive, more feely, touchy, like the aesthetic side of it. And a salesperson, like your dad taught you, it's a numbers game. You just go knock on doors, you send out a bunch of emails, you make a bunch of DMs, you make a bunch of phone calls, and there's an element of being able to endure rejection that is a muscle that gets developed.
Yes.
Talk to that.
I still, sometimes I'm just like, like when I get a sale, I'm like, someone gets it. I'm like, of course, like, I'm awesome. Like, our company's awesome. I'm so glad that you understand. But then when somebody rejects you, you're just like, it's very hard not to take it personally. I really don't anymore. But, or I mean, it depends. Sometimes some will get me here and there. I can't deny it.
You're human.
Yeah, and I'm kind of a very, like, feely creative person, like you said. So it's hard to, like, completely eliminate that. Although it's, like, way better. But in the beginning, that was probably the biggest shift, was like just getting used to rejection all the time. And that is entrepreneurship too. It's such a big skill, but no matter what you do, it's not going to be for everyone, and not everyone's going to get it. And I mean, that was a big switch too, of feeling like we need clients to what clients do we want. That was a nice transition. At the beginning, you kind of have to take what you can get. For what we do, it's so visual that, I could talk all day. It was very hard to sell in the beginning because we didn't have examples to point to, right? But as soon as we built up, I'd say the first few years, we were almost like funding our portfolio, and I was sort of undervaluing what we were worth. Not really even consciously. I didn't really understand all the what financially it would take to run a business. I thought, as a student, who came from doing Garden Girls or whatever, I was like, that's awesome to get, $1,000 or something like that, without really understanding after tax season what that means and everything. But I built, I just kept building up that muscle, and I think I just started to think, once we got that foundational portfolio in place, and I could point to, like, this is what we did, like, we just over-delivered on everything. And then that way we had a great portfolio. And then probably in year 2 or 3 is when I feel like I was selling what we were more worth. And I was able to go like, look, we did this. We created this transformation. Do you want the same for yourself? And that's a much easier sell than, I promise you we're talented. Here's some of my art projects. Like, I don't know. Like, here's a painting. Like, I don't know. Here's a sketch. I don't know. It's like, I swear we'll build a website. I guess I had to more amplify like the technical side of what we did. And I was like, we will build a website for you and we will create a logo for you. And it was just a lot of trust and friends of a friend's parents and things like that were working with us at first, I feel like. And then once I got that shiny portfolio, it started to be a bit easier. And funnily enough, when I immigrated here, because that's a big shift in the business too, was when we, after 7 years of building and having all of, this restaurant, this Botox clinic, this clothing store, and all of Vancouver being like, hey, like, we did that one, we did that one. The only, like, coming here, it was almost irrelevant.
Yeah.
Sure, I can show them the visuals, but it's like, oh, it's like this clinic in Canada. It doesn't have the same weight as being like, that place down the street that won all these awards or whatever. We did that one.
Yeah.
So it was almost like
starting over. Yeah.
In some ways. Yeah. The only client people knew here was Lululemon. That's the only one.
I mean, well, that's a good one to know.
Yeah. But, and we didn't do their brand, but like we did a lot of their events and branded things, but it's just like in outfits and stuff. Otherwise it was just like kind of like having startup mode again, which was quite an ego hit later. I was like, I already did this, but I have to do it again.
So that is an interesting avenue, because I think that is something that is really challenging, is if you did it once, like, how do you engineer the courage, the grit, the tenacity to do it a second time? It's like, it takes like a digging down deep, having an extra muscle to be like, okay, it will be worth it. I'm excited about it. How did you do that?
I think I just operate on a lot of delusion. I often will put a dream out there and be like, yeah, they did it. I can do it too, I guess. And I don't know. I truly thought when I moved here, I was like, my goal was like, oh, I'll just get like, in the first year it'll be hard, but I'll like get 50% US clients and then I'll have 50% Canadian clients. And then I'll slowly, build even more US clients kind of thing. And we're 2 years in, and I would say we're at 30% US clients, which is like still awesome. Huge difference. But it's like, I think I just always kind of come in like just with like, oh yeah, I'll do it. Yeah. I have like, I don't know. I think sometimes I'll have the most confidence and sometimes it'll wane a little bit. But I usually I thought I was just like, oh, there's way more businesses in the US. There's so many more entrepreneurs in Austin. Like, it just makes sense. It'll probably be easier. It was just different though. I think selling to Canadians and selling to US citizens is like there's just it's quite different. In Canada, you have to be a little bit more risk averse just because of the fact that there's less people. Like the whole population of Canada is 30 million people. There's 30 million people in Texas alone, right? So it's sort of like there's just more opportunity. Like here, it's amazing. Land of the free, so fun. It's like, there could be a bar that is also a doggy daycare / a macrame studio. Yes. And it will thrive, right? And you'll get this huge audience here. In Canada, there's a lot of practical businesses. Like all the guys with like the booth seats in the Raptors games or whatever, or at the Leaf games, their industry is like they create like cement, like things like that.
It's tangible.
It's very practical, very safe bet. Even opening like a restaurant or a cafe is kind of like insane, but people do it and we've helped them. But it's like it's just a very different thing. And then in America, it's just more like there's just more opportunity, I feel like. So people are like, I'll just start Uber, or whatever else. So,
So garden girl to immigrant to US, trying to transition your Canadian business to more US. and you had a business partner.
Yeah.
And then made a second shift there.
Yes.
And what has the journey of being like a solopreneur been like for you? And not solo in the sense, I know you have a team and all of that, but is the primary leader, visionary, founder?
It's just rapidly shifted. I think I just had to change. When you speak to like, what did I have to change about myself? I had to listen to myself, I think, more. When I had a business partner, it was more about how do we kind of support his dream and my dream. And I think we parted in a really good place and everything. We both understood that it needed to happen, and we needed each other when we did need each other to build the business initially. But I had to, yeah, just shift to listening to myself. And that might also be why I'm less inclined now in my life too to take on like business coaches or business groups or masterminds just for a minute. I think they're so valuable, and I think everyone should do them. I've gotten so much value. I've really like quadrupled my revenue, all these special things through building these groups. But right now I'm at a stage where I'm like, ooh, I really am doing everything for everyone else. I'm doing it for my team. I would even go to my team, which isn't a bad thing to do, to go to your team and say, hey, what clients do you enjoy? What clients do you not enjoy? But I'm like, I think I really need to be very motivated by my own goals at this point. So, yeah.
So I'm curious. So I think listening to ourselves is so valuable, incredibly valuable. And as a entrepreneur, business builder, leader, it's challenging because you are being distracted. People are making demands on you. They want access to your time, your inbox, your DMs.
Right.
There's always somebody pulling at you for something. And implementing systems, implementing accountability structures, implementing team calls, all of those parameters to help streamline it is helpful, but there are still demands. So what is your process or personal protocol, if you will, for quieting the noise and really knowing what is you versus what is your programming or what is fear? Do you have something that you really know, like, okay, this feels right to me? Hello again. I have something special for you. If you are a seven-figure entrepreneur, or even just an entrepreneur who's aspiring to do big things, then you will really enjoy our 4 tips guide on how you can go from where you're at, whether it's scattered, chaotic, drowning, to something that's systematized, organized, and scaling. Just click the link below and we will send you this free guide that will transform not only your business, but you as a leader.
I think maybe just, it's a good question. I think it is just being really in tune with yourself. And I really have taken up, probably in the last 3 years, I would say, I've been meditating fairly consistently.
Yes.
Not always the most consistent, but like even when I did go through my business breakup with my co-founder, there was like a lot of like resentment and little things that I was really frustrated with. But then I sat down and meditated for like hours on the weekend before I had the conversation with him that I was very like worried about, but the breakup conversation basically. And I, in my head before that, had all of these ideas and things that were listed out of all of my kind of like qualms and frustrations and complaints and blame and whatever.
Yeah.
And I ended up meditating, understanding like what is that going to, how is that going to serve me? It's not going to. So I actually went into the conversation with like only positivity and compliments and love, and it ended up being a lot better. So I don't know. I think that I just need those moments to slow down.
Yes.
Sometimes I feel like I just distract my mind. Sometimes that even helps if I just I'm also a comedian and really think comedy is important. So what comedy is it's just getting to the truth faster. And so sometimes just laughing it off helps me go like, okay, what's actually important?
Yes.
And then kind of going into, so it's sort of those two routes. I might just like laugh it off, find the funny in it, or meditate and kind of have a more like serious self-reflection moment. Yeah.
I love the laughing part because we have a saying, if you're going to laugh about it later, laugh about it now.
Yeah.
And
That's a great
sometimes
phrase.
you can look back, even the worst things, like it could be a business breakup, it could be a personal breakup, it could be a health crisis, it could be a financial crisis. Like you could be look back at it and be like, holy hell, that was a shit show.
Yeah.
And I survived it and I'm happier for it. And you kind of learn who's in the trenches with you and who's not
Yes.
in those moments.
Yeah.
And meditation
Yes.
and getting to like the root of what it is that you really want to be grounded in.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming to the conversation from that place probably allowed you guys not to lock horns.
Yeah. We're still friends, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll support whatever he does next. And same with him. He's supporting me all the time. So it is, it could have been, I think, if you kind of operate from the wrong feeling, I think I can sense better now as I get older what feelings are trigger feelings and what feelings are healthy places of, you actually speak about this all the time too, of like having, a healthy kind of more abundant mindset to operate in. And I 100% align with that. I'm just getting better at noticing that. And then I just try to find ways to calm myself down and get into that space before I do make a decision. I actually think there's something about when you're in a triggered mindset, it feels like an emergency and things need to just be handled.
Yes.
And that's like my maybe trauma response or something. But I would, like, if I had any advice for anyone, it would be just do not listen to yourself in that state and just go like, do not act. Just don't. Everything can wait.
Yes.
And then wait till even a whole 3 days. Sometimes it takes days.
Yeah.
In this case, it took me days. And also literally sitting down and meditating and resting and whatever. And then I finally was like, no, okay, now I feel like I'm in the right place. So it takes a while to sense that about yourself.
Yeah.
But
I think that's a great life rule though.
yeah.
We call it a 24-hour rule. If you're triggered and you are charged and activated around something, don't create, don't talk, don't schedule, don't send an email, don't text from that state because it's destructive.
Yeah.
But sometimes we feel like our alert system is like, you have to do something right now or you're going to die.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, this is not true.
Yeah, it's the opposite. If you respond now, you're gonna really get upset. Like something bad's it's gonna get worse.
Yes, it's gonna get worse. Yeah, let's just pour gasoline on this fire. No, let's not.
Yeah. And then you have to make it get worse a couple times, and then you figure that out. But, yeah. But if you guys could skip that, that's what I would skip. I'd be like, just do not do not take action when you are in a hyper, I guess, triggered or heated space. Yeah.
So meditation, I also meditate. Do you journal?
I used to a lot. But yeah, I mean, I also like to set goals. I like to feel like I have a vision that I'm working towards and something that really matters so that I can have something to kind of like zoom out of the like crazy situations and then go like, what is the ultimate feeling or goal that I want? I'm very visual. I have like, even on my phone, or not right, you can't really see it right now, it's my dog, but on my phone wallpaper, I typically will have my like vision board for the year. And I have my vision board on my laptop desktop screen and things like that. So I just kind of like, it's a way to just remind myself as much as I can what I'm working towards. Yeah. And that really helps.
I heard a saying the other day of shifting the word high achiever to intentional achiever.
Oh, I love that.
I know. I thought I liked it too because I think that sometimes we just achieve to achieve versus having a lot of intentionality around it.
Yeah.
And I know we talked on your show, because we just recorded your show,
yeah,
about having our soul in our body.
Yes.
Like not forfeiting our soul on our journey to success, on our journey to achievement.
Yeah.
Meditation is so helpful for me in that regard. How do you, with your team, create the intentionality?
That's, I guess, goal setting and talking about what, like intentionality around where we're headed, or
where you're headed, or even I know for the teams that I've built that when I help them become more integrated humans, meaning they're in touch with themselves and they know what they're showing up to do. I have this belief that most people want to show up, do a good job, add value, contribute, go home at night feeling fulfilled by the work that they did. And I think it's our responsibility as leaders to create that for people.
Yeah.
And sometimes we can't create it for our teams unless we've created it for ourselves.
Yeah, that's true.
And you have, in a way, like through your meditation, through your self-honoring choices, through your intentionality, created it for you. And then an extension of that is like passing it along to your team.
Yeah.
And if you have any ways that you do that.
Yeah, I definitely have been in places where I'm not there for myself or feeling right.
Me
And
too.
so I try to do what I can in those situations. But it's like, now that I am in that space, like currently I would say I am. And I don't know. I mean, we definitely get aligned on goals and everybody kind of understands their roles, like from a technical perspective. But I also try, like, I really don't blame. It's like us versus, it's not, this seems weird to say, but it's like us versus the client. If there's like a conflict,
The
it's not
Southwest
going to
model.
be, yeah, it's not going to be like, I'm not going to go, this client wants that. Why are you not? It's more like, how do we work together to manage this client if something's happening or whatever? And usually that's like always the best way to do it. Client appreciates it too, to approach it that way. So no blame. I don't really blame anybody on the team for anything. Like if things are not on track or on schedule or something, then like people will live. I mean, that's also probably something that is a luxury of the space we're working in. Like there's not really like branding emergencies, you know? Pick the color. Yeah. They're gonna fail. It's like it's always gonna be okay.
Yeah, you're not life or death. You're not in triage.
Yeah.
Right.
So like it's maybe that's part of what's nice about what we do, but that creates a nice system. I like it. I encourage people to speak up if there's an issue rather than feeling, because they won't get blamed. So I think that can be a really big problem, especially when you have, like I see it in interns or newer, fresher students coming into working with us, where they'll be like, and then something isn't quite right, but they wait till the last minute. And I'm like, oh, it would have been way better if you brought that up earlier.
Yes.
And then they're like, oh, yeah, I guess so. And like, or, you know, you can ask that question. Like, nobody's going to get mad at you. Like creating that kind of safe space, I guess, is what I do. And yeah, just encouraging people to speak up. And if they're like, oh, you're actually wrong, like it was this, not this, and then I react nicely to that, I go like, oh, thank you.
Right.
I'm not always on, I have 1,000,005 things to think about. So I really appreciate that you had that foresight rather than reacting in a way where it's like, what?
Yes.
I'm the leader and I know everything. Like, so I think I'm more like that. I feel like sometimes I can lean a little bit too far, or in the past at least, into being like too motherly or something. So sometimes that can be toxic, I guess, and like giving too much grace, like no boundaries. Like I think
I've struggled with that as well.
Yeah.
And then I swung the pendulum the other way, and then I struggled with that, and then you kind of figure out your middle.
Then we had a very similar journey.
Yes.
So yeah, I very like,
yes, I had an integrator tell me I coddled the team.
Okay, yeah.
And then I had another one call me a narcissist. And I'm like, I don't know, which am I? Am I the coddler or the narcissist?
That's
I don't
hilarious.
know.
Yeah. You're like, I gotta be in between.
I know I'm in between.
No,
but I do think that like when you are going so fast and you're over capacity and you have so many demands and you have so many tabs open in your brain, you can come across as a narcissist because you're not paying attention and you're not attentive to the EQ of the environment.
Yeah.
And then the opposite could be true, where you're so, the motherly side, right? You're so in tune with everyone's emotions and you're the empath. Mm-hmm. And then it's like almost disempowering because you're robbing people of self-regulation.
Yeah.
And so.
Oh, that's a good point.
It is a struggle.
True. You're kind of hurting them sometimes.
Yes, you're enabling them.
Yeah. I feel like now I'll be a great mom because of this experience of being an entrepreneur.
It's true. That is true.
Because I'm like, it is so much. It's like a relationship like that where you have to be just enough of it. Like I care about
Yes.
If your personal life is going through a hard thing, I care about it, but I also can't know every detail, and I also can't solve every problem for you. And that's sort of where I think a lot of my employees or even partners have gone awry, is when I'm just like trying to,
Yeah.
when I'm too involved,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we also are wrapped in a bubble of grace, and we're
Mm-hmm.
allowed to have the journey, and we're in process, and we're allowed to learn and grow and make mistakes. And the
Yeah,
thing
that's
is
true.
when you're an entrepreneur and you're a leader, you're literally on display.
Mm-hmm.
So all of your humanness is
Mm-hmm.
being evaluated.
Yeah.
And was having a conversation with another entrepreneur, and she was saying, I wish I started my business sooner. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, why? And she said, because it is the best character development journey.
Yes, it is.
It's like who you have to become has to change. And the building a business is just a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
It will put you face to face with all of your deepest fears, all of your deepest demons, all of your deepest anxieties.
So true.
And then you have to figure out, like, who am I going to be? Am I going to crumble, or am I going to step up? And sometimes you are kind of a monster. Like, you're frustrated with yourself, and you're like, okay, that button didn't work. Let's try this button.
Yeah.
And then you just evolve. So you are allowed to have that journey. And
Yeah.
I think my whole point in doing this podcast or show is to normalize the entrepreneurial journey.
Yes. It's a lot of shininess that you see, and then you compare, and then you go, oh, why aren't I doing this or that or this or that? And
Right.
it is really important to have these conversations.
Yeah.
I think, like, to your point of, or your question of how did I have to transform? One of the biggest things I'd say during the pandemic, because we do branding, we specialize in rebranding, and we in the pandemic, it just flatlined. So we were kind of on this like up and up and up, and then it just flatlined. I had to let go and descale. I had to let go of people who did nothing wrong and were great workers. I had to, try to continue to get sales in a time where people were just trying to keep things afloat. Branding is not a necessity, right? And I'm not trying to like say that what we do isn't important. It's
Yes.
extremely important, but it's more of an investment when you're looking to build and grow. When you have some capital and you're like, what do I do with this that's smart right now? Okay, we're going to invest in a pivot right now. But during that time, it was a flat line. And so that was probably one of the most difficult times in my entrepreneurial journey, and then moving here too, and kind of amid a recession, or at least even a looming fear, or
Yes.
talking about a recession affects sales of branding, right? If people are thinking I have to wait, right? So now I feel like people are finally back in a place where they're like, yeah, we do really need to, we definitely need to refine our niche, pivot. A lot of people went through a similar journey as all of us did when that happened, when you kind of reflect and you go, what's my strategy now? What do I want to actually do? So it's been great now, but during that time, I was like taking a lot of it personally and being like, oh my God, I'm a failure. I'm letting go of these people. I'm having to make these decisions. I'm not getting the sales I once was. And I shifted my mindset to, it really clicked for me when I said, this is my responsibility, but it's not my fault. So that is a big differentiator for all entrepreneurs out there, because you're right. You're on display. You are responsible for everything. You're responsible for the fact that your business is losing money, and it's your money.
Yes.
You're responsible for a client going awry. Like, sure, your team is too, but ultimately you are, right? And if you're a good leader, you're not going to be blaming your team all day. So yeah, there's a big, but then at the end of the day, it's not your fault when issues come. It's like always this delicate balance of like, how much do I take personal accountability and responsibility? Like, how much of this is attached to me and who I am and my abilities, and how much of this, it's a mirror,
Yes.
right? And how much of this is not. Yeah, business is like one of the biggest mirrors. So the self-growth has been huge, and I am
Yes.
really glad I started it at a young age.
Yeah.
What your friend was probably saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who you have to become, the journey, and also the narratives. You're reshaping your programming in your brain, because you, like, extreme ownership.
Yeah.
We could take extreme ownership. Like, that's everything is my fault. Everything is my responsibility. Everything, if it's going to happen, it's up to me.
Mm-hmm.
Which I love Jocko's book, Extreme Ownership is one of my favorite
Oh,
books.
I should read that one.
And then he wrote the second book, because he got a little heat from it, wrote The Dichotomy of Leadership, which is a little bit more about extreme ownership with boundaries. And to your point, like, it's not my fault, but I'm responsible, and we are going to solve this together. So we're facilitating a transformation. We're facilitating the change versus the sole person responsible for doing it all.
Yeah.
And that psychological shift isn't empowering.
Yes.
Versus disempowering.
Yes.
Because you don't have to put everything on your back and carry everybody. Everyone's got to walk on their own 2 feet. Everyone's got to contribute and add value. And I will help facilitate it, but I'm not going to carry it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a big thing was Becoming Supernatural. Have you read that one? Joe Dispenza?
Yes.
So that was a big one too, and that helped me kind of piece away parts of myself, and then building out now, like coming to Austin, starting stand-up comedy in one of the most competitive fields right now. That was another big like shift in what I had to do, and that really helped me, because it wasn't just only the business that was my identity. I was able to further split. I think it's very important to split your identity from only your business, and have it be a thing that you are, or a project, or a game maybe. That's a huge relief. And then making other things and having other hobbies. I know so many entrepreneurs that just give their all to their business, even to the point of like not giving enough to their relationships, et cetera, et cetera. But I think like as much as entrepreneurs have so much free time, so add another thing. No, but I just think like it is really important to carve out some time to build out other things that you can work on to help your identity, or like feel a sense of purpose, right?
Yeah. And sometimes if we don't do that, the universe does it for us. It reminds us that
That's true.
You are not your work. You are not your bank account. You are not your relationships. You are somebody else. And when you kind of figure out who that person is and create from that space, it's not a space of lack. It's a space of growth, expansion, etc. So a couple last questions.
Sure.
What does success mean to you?
It's changed. It never was like, oh, success is having a Lambo or anything. I never was like that. I think success was like having everyone like me. That was probably because I grew up being like bullied in middle school and things like that. And so I think there was some kind of wound in there that I was trying to heal. So I think that was more of what success was, that everyone would think I was like great and cool or whatever. And I still have a little bit of that, but I'm less inclined to, and maybe that's also just because now I have an amazing husband and life partner and my dogs. I have my I think that's really important too, to have your like home and your home base be a place that you're like so excited and thrilled to be in. That's helped me be like, okay, well, it's really for them now and our future children and all of that. Like, that's kind of more of what motivates me now. So working towards that, I guess, is a little bit different. So now success is, and it always was a little bit of like time, freedom, flexibility, but it's really truly flexibility. It's being able to like make money doing something that's enjoyable for me. Working with clients that are really grateful and thrilled to work with us and not bossing us around, I guess, which was happening more in like the very early years of the business. Yeah, I think those things. Feeling like I can have flexibility. I'm doing something that I really enjoy. And I still do care if people like me, but I'm not like everyone has to like, or like a lot of people have to like me. It's sort of more like I want to do what I love and be creative and make that be like the majority of what brings me income, instead of just like thinking I need a big number or something like that. Yeah.
Based on your definition of success, you're living your life in a successful state then.
Yeah. I would
So
feel
you're
like
doing
that
it.
now. Yeah. Yeah. I've gone up and down in if I feel like that, but I do feel, I do feel satisfied with like, I do feel like I'm in a successful place. I would confidently say I'm successful. Yeah. Yeah, I would.
Yeah, because it wasn't an eyes open thing. It was like the flexibility, how you felt about it, all of that, and you're doing it.
Yeah. If somebody asked me a different question, like, do you have the biggest firm creative agency in Austin, Texas? Then I would say no.
Well, but also that ladder will always move. That target will continually move.
Exactly. But that's not like, but if you're saying success, to my own definition, 100%. Yeah. That's kind of a nice realization.
It is a great realization.
Yeah. Do you feel like that too?
Yes. Well, my definition of success is inner congruence.
Oh.
So
what is inner congruence?
So I don't think that you can have an outside experience unless you have an inside experience. Meaning you could have everything you want that you would say is successful, right? You said the Lambo, the whatever. You could have that and then not have inner peace. And so for me, that would not be successful because I would have sacrificed all of my inner peace for this external thing. Whereas I feel like when I create from a place of inner congruence, meaning I am feeling and being in my bones who I want to be and become, then I'm congruent, and then naturally a byproduct is everything external becomes that.
Yeah.
And so if I can stay rooted in that inner congruence, by default I'm successful.
Yeah.
Second question, before we wrap up. What projects are you most excited about?
Projects. I'm really excited about like this, like podcasting. That's something that I just feel is very, like it's a competitive industry and everything, but I think I'm at a place now where I'm excited to share. I've learned a lot. I've learned so many lessons, almost like sometimes I'm like, I learned enough lessons, stop throwing them at me. Like, it's enough.
I don't need any more obstacle courses.
Yeah. I swear I figured it out.
Yeah.
Stop. But now I'm like, I think I'm a little bit more inclined to share and be more of like a mentor in that way. And I think also naturally, which is so interesting, is since kind of doing this, I've also gotten way more like consulting based clients and almost like mentor coaching type of clients, which is exciting. In terms of like our projects, we have lots of exciting pivots that we're working on and rebrands, which is cool. And I am really excited to be in the comedy scene in Austin because I'm just like, it's so challenging and it's so, I don't know, it's so different. It's like a whole nother new journey to be on. And so because it's sort of newer, I'm very excited about that too. And like seeing the progress in that.
I mean, I need to come see a show.
Yeah, you should.
I would love to. I like to laugh.
I'll let you know. Yeah, I know. I'll let you know.
Where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
So I would say Instagram's big. I'm Rebecca Rosselli or Rebs Rosselli on Instagram. You can find me through Pivot and Pilot. Our podcast is Pivot or Die. Check out Staci's episode. It's going to be awesome. And you can also check out our podcast Hump Days, which is a very different vibe from entrepreneurship, but it's a lot of fun too. We kind of talk about the crumbling of Hollywood, I guess. Yeah. And just have fun.
I have never seen a Hump Day episode, so I'll have to go check out one.
Yeah.
I definitely see the studio that we have on the other side here. Yeah. It was lovely having you on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
Like and subscribe, guys.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, tuning in, watching. Remember that in order to organize and scale your businesses, you have to organize and scale yourselves. And remember to stay rooted while you get shit done. Thanks for watching.